through communication, we're better able to explain to you how the process is going to work right from the start. And then as each part of that process goes along, we'll give you updates and we'll let you know where things are going.
You've landed on the Mortgage Life podcast, where we strive to bring you mortgage-related info that's easy to understand.
We have conversations with market experts to bring you timely updates, because there's one certainty in this industry: things change.
I'm Mindy Bodwin.
And I'm Pete Solomosi. Welcome to the Mortgage Life podcast. Yeah, your audio sounds really good. Probably
Good.
some of the
Got
best
it.
that I've heard.
Got it.
I
right.
listened to our last podcast, the one that we recorded in person side by side.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was because I was turning my head, but I kept going quiet like that. And I'm like, I made a
Right.
mistake.
It's interesting because that was our first time recording in person in quite some time, or side
No.
by side, because we used to do across.
Yes.
And so that's the thing, is you're talking and then you want to, turn your head, but it's so true, because you're like in a conversation,
Yep.
you know, I know, I was like, where do there's a, I can't, then can you hear
I
me?
didn't know where to look. And I was doing a lot of ums and ahs. I felt like I was like some sort of radio broadcaster, or I don't know. But I noticed it and I'm like, no more ums and ahs.
No more ums and ahs.
So if I just
So,
pause.
what does a mortgage broker do, Pete?
Mortgage brokers. Well, this is a really good question and a very timely question, because we have a lot of people that are now starting to get back in the market. So, what the heck do we do? Well, in short, we are a place, I guess we're people, but we're an area where we put together lenders and mortgage borrowers, and we access a ton of different lenders, and we essentially use our skills to figure out what is the right fit. So we help people with purchases, they're buying a property. We help people with redoing existing mortgages, that's a refinance. We can do switches or title transfers. Anything to do with mortgages, we help with that.
And of course, the lines of credit, the secured line of credit, just want to pop that in there.
It's good to say that we do all sorts of things. So mortgages encompass not only fixed rate mortgages, but we also do variable rate or adjustable rate mortgages and those home equity lines of credit. We even do reverse mortgages for the right client.
Yeah. And so people, sometimes when I'm interviewing a client, they'll say, oh, I was chatting with a mortgage broker that worked at X bank. And I'm like, okay. So there's a difference, right? So there's a difference between an independent mortgage broker and somebody that is a bank employee, right? So
Right.
first of all, just quickly, as Canadian mortgage brokers, we are very heavily regulated, licensed, continuing education, all provincially. This is ongoing every 2 years. Now it seems like every few months, every time there's some sort of a shift or a change, we are educated, we are tested. We are legit. This is a legit professional enterprise that we're running here. And of course, things are always changing, so we have to keep learning. But if you look at the difference between like that sort of level of broad education in the whole marketplace versus, say, like a bank employee. So like a bank, whether a credit union or just a regular bank, their staff is basically trained in that bank's policies and procedures. And yeah, they're going to have a general understanding, of a mortgage and the different rates that they offer, but they're not typically going to have that sort of broad spectrum on how to assess a client's true needs or what would be a best fit for them, because maybe that bank's product wouldn't be the best fit, but a bank's not going to tell you that, right?
Well, absolutely. And having personally come from the banking side, I know what the mortgage courses look like on their side. And I can say without a shadow of a doubt, the mortgage courses that bank employees take are very basic. The mortgage course that we have to take, I would liken it to a university level course, because I mean, even if you just look at the book, it's about 2 inches thick. It has a lot of stuff in it. You have to attain a fairly high level to pass this course. I think the exam was a 3-hour exam. So to me, it was very much like a university course.
Mm-hmm. And for me, it was a university. I have a
Right.
4-year university degree
Right.
that I took and was able to become a mortgage broker with that. So it's very in depth, broad. I mean, there's legal components, and yeah, and I think this is the part that I like. The part that makes me feel comfortable in my role is that I can confidently assure people that we've got this. You know, we've got the education component.
Well, absolutely. And I think even just as an addition to that, we do get a lot of questions from clients about things that pertain to the mortgage side, but maybe aren't necessarily related to a rate or a payment. Sometimes people ask questions about title. Sometimes people ask questions about uh, how property transfer works. And there's a lot of these various bits and pieces. Oh, another one would be like a statement of adjustments that a lawyer might do when you're closing a property. So those
Mhm.
are a lot of the things that we have to go through during our training to figure out how to deal with yourselves as clients and how to properly navigate that whole process so we can make it easy for you.
Yeah, exactly. So just outside of like banks and credit unions, there's another sort of recent, sort of new thing that's happening in the marketplace is sort of an online aspect, right? So
Yeah.
there's various online areas where you could just go in, sign up, make an account, apply for a mortgage. You know, who is that? Where is that going? Is that a person? Is it a company? It's a bit, to me, it's a bit scary, actually. It's like this kind of this void. Like, I'm not certain at this point. Maybe you know, Pete. Is there a licensed mortgage broker behind there somewhere? Or
It's a good question. A lot of times, it really depends on where you're going. There are some online resources that are backed by mortgage brokers. And depending on where the company is located, they may be licensed in that jurisdiction or all across Canada. Um, but they also might have employees working for them that are essentially just there to kind of move the process through to almost act as an intermediary between the broker and the client. So it really depends. And I think this comes to the bigger question, which is how complex is the financing market these days? And my answer would be it's ridiculously complex. Just as an example, I was talking to some clients yesterday about being a first-time home buyer, and there was just a recent change this year that affected the exemption for first-time home buyers for the property transfer tax. That's a rule that's specific to BC. It changed. It's a really convoluted rule because now part of the property transfer tax applies above 500,000. So you really have to know the legislation and the laws really well. But again, that just gives you an example of how complex the various bits and pieces of this market are today. And you really need to know very well what's happening in your jurisdiction so that you can properly get through the process.
yeah, so let's look at the process a little bit,
Hmm.
right? Let's kind of pull apart the veil and take a peek into exactly what does a mortgage broker do? Like, what is the process that we go through? And first of all, I just want to say that not every conversation, not every meeting, not every mortgage we start actually works. It like turns into a funded mortgage a lot, and especially in the past couple of years with sort of the dramatic increase in home prices and interest rates and affordability issues, that a lot of it is just conversations and planning and building and credit counseling. And so this is all part of our umbrella, um, basically just working towards meeting their sort of financial goals through home ownership or refinance. So yeah, basically to start, when we're looking at chatting with somebody, the first step would be a bit of a financial analysis, just kind of evaluating the client's financial health. And I know these are big words, but that's definitely part of what we do. And we look at your credit score. We look at your income. Is it consistent? Is it not? Are you self-employed? Are you not? Your debts. Is it credit card? Do you have lots of personal loans? What's the level of debt that you have compared to your income? Yeah, and just kind of build this huge package as we're working through our conversation to see what sort of products would be best, whether you're purchasing, refinancing, switching, for your specific situation.
Well, exactly. And I like to call that the information gathering process, like really getting to know and understand exactly what our clients are doing. So part of that, and I think this is a good segue into like a little bit of a deeper dive, is a lot of times we will ask those questions, but we'll also gather supporting documents so that we know exactly what's going on. And that to me is how we level up as mortgage brokers. We're going to take that extra step to ensure that we know exactly what's going on so that when we do something like a pre-approval, something like a purchase agreement or a submitting a mortgage for an actual approval, we know for sure that this is what the lender will accept. And so that deep dive is really important for us because it ensures your success.
Yeah, have to be precise with the information at the beginning. I mean, you know the old adage, garbage in, garbage out, right? So the more precise,
Exactly.
accurate, complete picture we have, the more precise and accurate the end goal achievement will
Yeah,
be, right? It will match your needs.
exactly.
And so then we're as an intermediary, right? So we're working with the client and we're sort of also working with banks and other lenders, monolines, credit unions, listening, chatting, and then in our minds, we're thinking about different mortgages, different companies. So we're also comparing mortgage products. So again, sort of back to working with one person who's just from one facility, like one bank, we have access to a wide variety of lenders. Like you name it, there's going to be a lender that will have some sort of a policy for that particular product. And then
And
part of that is comparing rates, terms, conditions, alternative lenders, fee, like it goes on, right? I mean, gosh, like think of all the mortgage products that exist, Pete. It's
oh,
crazy.
exactly. Well, and that's exactly what I wanted to add into that is that we deal with everything from the very straightforward A lending, so that would be a traditional good credit score, verifiable income purchase kind of file, to one where it's difficult. It might have unverifiable income or poor credit or a very strange property, a unique property. And those we might have to go to something like a private lender. And so knowing the various bits and pieces and the whole range of lending solutions that might be available, we can provide you with all these different options. And that at least gives you room to figure out how you want to proceed. And that's really our goal, is to give you some options.
Exactly. So then that's the other aspect is the market components, right? So there's always that conversation. Are you a fixed person or are you a variable person? Are you interested in a mortgage or are you interested in a HELOC? So that's the other layer as part of this sort of figuring out what works best for the client, providing the expert advice. It doesn't affect us if you choose fixed or variable, but it is important that we understand the difference and the ramifications of those different aspects.
Right. One of the questions that I always like to ask when it comes to fixed or variable, just so that you guys as the listeners kind of understand, the question isn't necessarily, do you want a fixed or variable? It's really, for us, it's about what is it that helps you sleep at night? What gives you the peace of mind to be able to get through your mortgage term? Because for some people, if you've got a variable rate mortgage and you're constantly worried about the rate going up or down and your payment being affected, then that's not a very workable solution. So we're actually going a little bit deeper than just, do you want this or that? It's a question about lifestyle. It's a question about peace of mind, about stress and anxiety.
And
And
also
that's
timelines.
and timelines. Absolutely.
Yeah, because
So
with variable rate mortgages, there's different rules for penalties than there are for fixed rate mortgages. So sometimes, yeah, if somebody's thinking, well, I'll probably only own this place for a couple years and maybe, upgrade, then that's when that conversation becomes really important and start diving into the numbers a little bit to see what would be the more economical way forward. But a big
absolutely.
part of the conversation, especially over the past couple of years, it's been this is when I wish there was such thing as a crystal ball.
It has been very challenging lately. And that's definitely where these conversations come about. But it's also where us as brokers, again, for Mindy and I, what we do is we are very diligent with record keeping. And for us, we can go back and we can say, hey, we have clients that took this kind of mortgage 2 years ago. Is there an advantage in today's market to look at that mortgage? Maybe there's some way of saving the client money, providing a little bit more flexibility. The market changes all the time. And that's where that expert advice comes from. We will keep in touch. And there's nothing better from our perspective than just being able to show you the value of in keeping touch and essentially showing you what may be possible.
Yeah. There has been big shifts, right? And you don't really know. You're just kind of going along making your payments, but there's quite often shifts that happen in the marketplace where we can change something to help with the payment or shorten the amortization or something. It's just
Right.
it's interesting. I feel like a lot of people sort of have this feeling that when you sign up for a mortgage, that's it. You're done. It's your mortgage. It's done. But that's actually not the case.
Right.
There's a
And
lot of
life
little
changes.
ways of kind of working through these things.
So that brings us to the next step of kind of facilitating the process. So as mortgage brokers, we're there to help you through the process. We operate a lot through either in-person meetings or during COVID, we got really good at this, is doing virtual meetings. So finding us by phone, by Zoom, by email. What else do we do to facilitate the process, Mindy?
Documents, paperwork. It's handling the paperwork, building your application, submitting your application, sometimes to multiple lenders if we're not happy with what we're getting in the beginning. Basically, streamlining the process as much as we can for our clients, trying to make it as less stressful as possible, less cumbersome, but also with the understanding that we do need the documents. The documents are critical for the accuracy of the information in order to get you the proper product that you need. So we are going to get more into the document part in a subsequent episode.
Mhm.
We're going to actually do a whole episode on the documentation because it's that
Yes.
important.
Stay
So
tuned for that.
yeah.
But definitely the technology bit has really helped us in the last little bit to make sure, I guess, to ensure that clients have a very seamless process. So if you've got a cell phone with a camera, it is just that easy. It's easy as taking the photographs. They can be uploaded right through our secure portal. It's basically as easy as a few clicks. And that's the beauty of being able to do stuff with technology today. Most people are very good with it. I still have the occasional client that wants to come in, and I am happy to meet with people in person. I'm happy to take documents. But Mindy, when you were talking about the olden days, all I could think about was the olden T1 general tax returns that had like the massive staple in them because some
Yes.
people have really big tax returns and thinking, number one, is my staple remover going to actually get through all these pages? And number two, how am I going to staple this back together? Because
Yeah.
I don't have one of those big staplers.
Oh my
So
God, totally. I knew you were going to say the T1 generals, but I forgot about that staple. That's so true.
yes, because so okay, so I have to go back in my history. I started at KPMG as an articling student after graduating from university, and I remember we had a very specific stapler that was used. There was actually three staplers. There's a regular size stapler, and then there was the one for files that were a slight bit bigger. The regular stapler wouldn't cut it, so maybe 10 pages plus. And then there was the 50-page plus one, which is this it almost like took up an entire desk. It was this huge stapler that you had to almost get permission to use. But yeah, I'm very thankful that we don't have those anymore.
Yeah.
People can simply upload a PDF of their tax return. Most people have their accountants send that directly to us. So very easy process and reduces a lot of paper waste.
Totally. So yeah, so we've been talking about mortgages, right? So there's
Yes.
another sort of a little baby half step before the mortgage application, which would be a pre-approval. So yes,
Yep.
we also do pre-approvals or pre-qualification, however you want to define it. So yes, we can get you pre-approved for a mortgage. We're happy to do that. It's a good thing to do when you're thinking about buying. You're not sure how much you qualify for. You want to secure your interest rate. A lot of realtors like to see this, that you've got something in writing from a lender. It gives them a little bit more confidence in you as a buyer. It helps to show you what sort of documents you're going to need when you do put that offer in, so that subject to finding condition window isn't quite so stressful because you're boss just went on holidays to Peru and now you can't get a letter of employment. Helps to avoid things like that.
I love that. And that pre-approval process, like you said, Mindy, it is absolutely critical to finding out what you can afford. So your broker will let you know exactly what that number is. You can pass that figure along to your realtor, like Mindy said. And again, it's a small thing, but sometimes in a rising rate environment, having that pre-approval with a locked-in rate helps ensure that you don't have any rate surprises.
Very true.
So then I guess we can get on to what about you talked a little bit about negotiating with lenders.
Yeah, so this is that part. If you just sort of imagine us as a intermediary between, client and lender. And so we're not, our fiduciary duty isn't to the lender, it's to our clients, but we do need to maintain relationships with lenders in order to get the best products and rates for our clients. So, it's important to maintain professionalism at all time. And I feel the better the relationships are, the better ability we have to negotiate for our clients. So we actually can, with some financial institutions, negotiate rate. We can submit rate requests after we get an approval. If there's a situation where a client's been offered something a little bit lower elsewhere, but we have a better product with a little bit of a higher rate, we can then show that lender, hey, these guys got it's like that, like the price match.
Right,
At the
exactly.
grocery store. It's kind of like that. Same thing.
Those are really good points. And the one thing I wanted to add to that is that as brokers, we talked about having access to a lot of different lenders. So we have access to banks, credit unions, what we call our monoline lenders or mortgage channel lenders. We have access to alternative lenders and to private lenders. What I should say though is we also maintain relationships with the lenders that we actually don't have access to. So as brokers, there's some banks that do not deal with the brokers. They don't deal through the broker channel. I find it a huge advantage to know what those lenders do well because there's oftentimes that a client will come by and they have a scenario that works really well with bank A. It's a bank that we may not deal with, but for me and for Mindy, and I'm sure for a lot of brokers that do this really well, that referral to that bank for that client, because it's the right thing for the client, is so important. I will always keep in touch with you after the fact. We will do that. Even if the bank doesn't deal with brokers, I'm happy to keep in touch with you because we can act as your kind of go-to. We can answer questions. We can figure stuff out because oftentimes we find that the banks, they may not always have the same employees in place and they may not always have the same level of service that we can provide. And so if we can be that person, that touch point for you, then essentially we create a win. And maybe at some point in the future you come back and we do your mortgage. So that's how we win.
That's a really good point. And goes back to that, keeping the client first, client centered, evaluating the overall picture. And it's quite often, especially at renewal time, for example, everybody wants a better rate at renewal, but sometimes the math just doesn't make sense.
Right.
And the product offering that they're already in is the best way forward. But that doesn't mean that we're going to then just be like, all right, we're done with that client. Absolutely not. We are still here.
Mm-hmm.
So
well,
whether you want us to be or not.
Exactly. And it's, I always find that clients are just so happy to have someone that has an unbiased opinion. And realistically for us, the win is when you're in the right product at the right time. So whether we have access to it or not, we have got access to most products, but we just don't have access to all. But if we keep in touch, then I think we create that opportunity to have another interaction. And again, potentially that's a client for life.
Yes. And then kind of taking it one step further into the products, we have access to specialized products. We'll get into what specialized means, but the interesting part here is that sometimes we actually get referrals from various banks who don't have these specialized products, and they'll be like, they'll have had a previous relationship with this client and say, it'd be really great if you guys could find something for them or whatever. So that relationship does kind of go both ways, right? So it's nice that sometimes when you get those people that are looking out for the client's best interest, but Specialized mortgage product. What the heck is that? Self-employed individuals. What if you only started your job being self-employed a year and a bit ago? Can you
Mm.
get a mortgage? What about first-time home buyers that need help with the down payment, or is there anything for that? What about if your credit score is a little bit bruised? You're not reaching the required thresholds. Can you still get a mortgage? Or what if you've missed mortgage payments in the past or had a bankruptcy or consumer proposal? I think a lot of people think that because something like that has happened to them, that they're just immediately ejected from the home buying process, but that's not the case.
Right. Well, and even something like you've probably heard of the stress test. So stress test is the ratio of your income to your debts. And sometimes you might hit the top of the stress test. You might max out your ratios. Well, we have lenders that have extended ratios. So there's again another specialized product where we can kind of look to various sources to find the thing that might fit for your scenario. Commercial lending. Sometimes people may have a new business that wants to buy a commercial space. Sometimes that's really tough for lenders to look at. Given our experience, we can structure that in such a way that it makes it desirable for lenders to look at, whether it's a small commercial mortgage or a large one. We have access to a lot of different avenues.
Yeah, that commercial lending space is very interesting. And yes, we will be doing some commercial episodes in the
And
future for
it's
sure.
an the commercial thing is a neat product
Mhm.
because it can be something as simple as an accountant buying a small office space, or it can be something as large as a manufacturing company buying a big industrial space.
Or
All
somebody building a rental apartment building.
Yes, exactly. So a rental apartment building. There's so many different options on the commercial side, and there's different products, different things available on that side as well. So yeah, stay tuned for our commercial lending series. We might do a series. I'm not going to promise a series,
I
but
think it's going to have to be at least 2 episodes because
it may,
there is just, as we dive deeper into the commercial world, there are just so many different types of facilities,
yeah.
facilities as in like debt facilities, like
Mhm.
mortgage products, lines of credit, whatever, et cetera,
Yeah.
that are just defined and qualified for and utilized so differently than they are in the residential world. So
Yeah.
probably at least 2 episodes.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. And so then part of that, like here we are, residential mortgage broker. How on earth did we start doing like commercial products, for example? Well, it's all about coordinating and relationship building and maintaining relationships with the various contacts, right? So that's it. So yes, we're working with lenders, that's one of the other parties that we coordinate with, but there's a whole myriad of other professionals that we work with to from beginning to end and even beyond to make sure that every aspect is covered for our clients.
That's right. Well, and those relationships are ones where we get to know the people on the other side. So whether that's a realtor, a lawyer, a financial advisor, appraiser, home inspector, uh, all sorts of people that are in and around the mortgage industry that are related to any particular transaction, we get to know them. So we can provide you with some referral sources, so places that you might want to go to chat with these people about the various scenarios that you might have. Or we can also vet people to kind of say, well, these are the ones that are doing a lot of this, or potentially, here's a good option for you in this particular area if you live in Kelowna or if you live in Victoria. So
Mhm.
it's always nice to know the people that are in and around the industry because they are not only a good resources, but they're a good place to kind of start part of that process that you might be in.
Yeah, and just like our industry, the mortgage broker industry is changing, so too are those other sort of, on the cusp or on the shoulder industries that work towards helping facilitate mortgages. So by maintaining close relationships with lawyers or appraisers, say, we are always at the forefront of what's going on in that aspect, in that part of the transaction, right? So that's also very important. God forbid, oh yeah, yeah, lawyers can get this done in 3 days, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden something changes and now it's like minimum time is 2 weeks or whatever, right? So we want to make sure that the advice that we're giving in those other modalities is in fact current and accurate.
Yeah.
Um, So that's
Yeah.
another important piece.
And we deal with those other types of industries quite a bit. So we'll have a good insight into not only what their timelines are, but their costs. I'm not going to ever quote you a cost because it's really dependent on that particular person, but at least we'll have a sense of a range of costs. And sometimes that helps because it just gives you a sense of what you need to budget.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So
So
yeah, so that's kind of the whole sort of pre and during but what we do to kind of help clients, I guess the big thing that for Pete and I especially is the ongoing support.
yes.
This is a whether you want it or not. We just we found in our careers, I don't know, I've 12 and a half years. I can't remember how many years you've been a mortgage broker.
15.
Yeah. So that the key is communication, transparency. It builds trust. It lets our clients know that they're always, honestly, always, I'm always thinking, always remembering when there's something, I'm like, oh, that's this person. I should let them know about that. This happened. Maybe that will help them now. Maybe they can now get that house that they want to build a suite in, or, it's that ongoing support. It's that reminding, that communication piece that we just find is really important for us.
Exactly. And I like to think of it as almost pulling back the curtain on what used to be a very non-transparent process.
Mhm.
I remember getting my first mortgage. It was very unclear to me as to what was happening. So through communication, we're better able to explain to you how the process is going to work right from the start. And then as each part of that process goes along, we'll give you updates and we'll let you know where things are going. It's nice to use technology to have the portal so you can actually see that you've uploaded certain things and we've got certain things. It's also nice for us to be able to follow up with you over time because if things change or there's opportunities available to you, then again, we've got that communication line open. So, pulling back the curtain, giving you the power to make the best choices. That's what we do.
Yeah, for that customized mortgage solution.
I love it. So if you've got questions, you know who to ask. We're here to help answer the process. Answer the process, answer the questions. I don't know. We're going to be here. I I can't say it. Nope. The summary part is not working for me right now. So Mindy, I'm going to turn it over to you to summarize.
We are here, basically. We're here at the beginning, we're here at the end, we're here after. It felt good to provide some transparency as to how this all works. And yes, please, like questions, always never be afraid to reach out, never be afraid to pick up the phone and call. We are here. This is The Mortgage Life.
We look forward to continuing the conversation.
So come back and listen.